A journey between life and death. Lost in the Sahara. The marathon that turned into a nightmare. The Sahara Desert is the largest hot desert on Earth. Stretching across North Africa, it is larger than many countries combined. During the day, the temperature can rise above 50 degrees Celsius. At night, the cold can be just as deadly. Every year, people disappear here. Some are never found. But in April 1994, one man willingly ran into this unforgiving wilderness. He wasn't lost. At first, he wasn't trying to cross the desert. He wasn't searching for treasure. He was competing in what many call the toughest foot race on Earth, the Marathon des Sables, a brutal race across more than 250 kilometers of the Moroccan Sahara. Every runner carried their own food. Every runner faced blistering heat. Every runner knew the desert would test their limits. But no one expected what happened next. A violent sandstorm swept across the race. Within minutes, the checkpoints disappeared. The flags disappeared. Even the footprints disappeared beneath the shifting sand. When the storm finally cleared, one runner stood completely alone. No other competitors. No rescue team. No map he could trust. Only endless dunes, stretching to the horizon. His name was Mauro Prosperi. For the next 9 days, he would fight thirst, hunger, loneliness, hallucinations, and death itself. This is his incredible true story. The man who loved to run. Long before the desert, Mauro Prosperi lived a very different life. Born in Italy, he wasn't a professional athlete. He worked as a police officer. Strong, disciplined, determined. Running wasn't just exercise. It was part of who he was. Every race became another challenge to conquer. So when he heard about the Marathon des Sables, he couldn't resist. At the time, the race already had a legendary reputation. Many people called it the toughest foot race on Earth. Not because of the distance alone, but because runners had to survive the desert while racing through it. Imagine running for 6 days across burning sand, rocky valleys, and endless dunes, while carrying your own backpack filled with food and survival equipment. Every kilogram on your back felt heavier with every passing hour. Every step became harder than the last. Yet athletes from around the world dreamed of completing it. For Mauro, this wasn't just another race. It was the ultimate test. He trained for months. He prepared his body. He prepared his mind. Nothing could prepare him for the Sahara itself. The desert makes its move. The race began. Hundreds of runners spread across the Moroccan desert. The atmosphere was incredible. People from different countries, different cultures, different languages, all chasing the same goal: to finish. The first days were exactly what Mauro expected. Hard, exhausting, hot, but manageable. He found a steady rhythm. Each checkpoint brought fresh water. Each completed stage brought confidence. He believed he was doing well. Then, everything changed. On the 4th day, the wind began to rise. At first, nobody seemed worried. Small sandstorms were common in the Sahara. Experienced runners simply lowered their heads, covered their faces, and continued forward. But this storm was different. The wind became stronger. Then, stronger still. Soon, sand filled the air so completely that runners could barely see a few meters ahead. The sky turned orange. The sun disappeared. The desert itself seemed to vanish. Every direction looked exactly the same. Mauro stopped running. He wrapped his scarf tightly around his face. He tried to protect his eyes. He waited, hoping the storm would pass. But it didn't. The wind screamed across the dunes, throwing sand against his body with incredible force. For nearly 8 hours, the storm raged. The race had become a battle, simply to remain standing. When the wind finally slowed, Mauro opened his eyes. Silence. Complete silence. He looked around. There were no runners, no race markers, no checkpoints, no footprints. The Sahara had erased everything. At first, he wasn't afraid. He believed the others couldn't be far away. He climbed the nearest dune, expecting to see colorful race flags. Nothing. He climbed another. Still nothing. Then another. Nothing again. For the first time, he realized the terrible truth. He had no idea where he was, and somewhere beyond the endless sea of sand. The race continued without him. By now, Mauro had no idea how many days had passed. The desert had stolen more than his strength. It had stolen his sense of time. Every sunrise looked the same. Every sunset felt like another reminder that he was still alone. His body had become painfully thin. His lips were split and bleeding. His feet were covered in blisters. Even breathing felt like hard work. Yet somehow, he kept moving. One slow step after another. The Sahara is unlike almost anywhere else on Earth. During the day, the temperature can soar above 50 degrees Celsius. At night, it can become surprisingly cold. For Mauro, there was no escape from either extreme. The scorching heat drained every ounce of energy from his body. Then, as darkness fell, the cold settled over the desert. His exhausted body had to endure both. Every new day became another battle simply to stay alive. Hunger was now a constant companion. The little food he had found was long gone. His body had begun consuming its own energy reserves. Each step demanded more effort than the last. The silence around him became overwhelming. No engines, no voices, no rescue teams. Only the wind, moving across endless dunes. At one point, Mauro looked across the horizon and thought he saw people. He called out. No one answered. He walked toward them, slowly, painfully. But as he got closer, they disappeared. It had only been another mirage. The desert was testing not only his body, but also his mind. As the days dragged on, the weight of isolation became almost unbearable. He began asking himself questions no one should ever have to answer. Would anyone ever find him? Did anyone even know where to start looking? Would his family ever learn what had happened? Or would the Sahara simply erase every trace of his journey? For the first time, the possibility of never returning home felt real. Eventually, his despair became overwhelming. Believing that rescue would never come, Mauro reached one of the darkest moments of his life. In a state of exhaustion and hopelessness, he made the heartbreaking decision to end his own suffering. But then, something unexpected crossed his mind. As a devout Catholic, he believed that taking his own life would bring even greater pain to those he loved. That thought stopped him. Instead, he made another decision. If the desert was going to claim his life, It would not be because he gave up. He would keep walking for as long as his body allowed. That decision changed everything. Not because the desert suddenly became easier. It didn't. Not because food appeared. It didn't. Not because rescue helicopters filled the sky. They didn't. What changed was Mauro himself. Every step became an act of defiance. Every breath became a refusal to surrender. He no longer walked because he believed rescue was certain. He walked because as long as he could move, there was still hope. One morning, something felt different. The landscape had begun to change. The endless sea of towering dunes slowly gave way to rocky ground. Mauro didn't know it yet, but he had wandered far from the Marathon des Sables course. In fact, he had unknowingly crossed into neighboring Algeria. He had survived longer and traveled farther than anyone could have imagined. But he was still desperately weak, and without help, his remarkable journey could still end in tragedy. As he struggled forward, a small movement caught his eye in the distance. At first, he feared it was another mirage. The desert had deceived him before. He didn't dare believe what he was seeing. But this time, the shapes did not disappear. They grew clearer with every step. Someone was really there. The miracle that no one expected. Mauro could barely believe his eyes. The figures in the distance continued moving. They weren't disappearing. They weren't another cruel mirage. They were real, with every ounce of strength he had left. He staggered toward them. His legs felt as though they might collapse beneath him. His vision blurred, but he kept going. One step, then another. The people approaching him were Tuareg nomads. For centuries, they had crossed these deserts. They understood the Sahara better than almost anyone on Earth. When they saw Mauro, they immediately realized something was terribly wrong. His body was severely dehydrated. He was exhausted, weak, barely able to stand. Without hesitation, they gave him water, food, and, most importantly, hope. After days alone in one of the harshest places on Earth, Mauro was no longer fighting for survival by himself. He had been found. The Tuareg helped him reach safety. Only then did Mauro discover something astonishing. He hadn't simply wandered off course. He had unknowingly crossed into neighboring Algeria. He had traveled an incredible distance through one of the world's most unforgiving deserts. Many believed such a journey was impossible. Yet somehow, he had survived. When news reached the race organizers, they could hardly believe it. Most had feared the worst. Search teams had looked for him. But the Sahara is unimaginably vast. Finding one person among endless dunes is like searching for a single grain of sand on an endless beach. Against all odds, Mauro Prosperi was alive. His recovery took time. His body had endured extreme dehydration, severe weight loss, and unimaginable physical stress. But some wounds cannot be seen. The emotional scars of those days in the desert stayed with him long after he returned home. Even so, Mauro refused to let that experience define him. Instead, he chose to face it. Most people, after surviving something like this, would never return. Who could blame them? The Sahara had nearly taken his life. It had pushed him beyond every human limit. But Mauro wasn't like most people. Years later, he stood once again at the starting line of the Marathon des Sables, not to prove anything to the world, but to prove something to himself. This time, he crossed the finish line. The race that had once become a nightmare became a symbol of triumph, not because it was easy, but because he refused to let fear write the final chapter of his story. Today, Mauro Prosperi's incredible survival continues to inspire people around the world. His story reminds us that the greatest battles are often fought in silence, far from cameras, far from crowds. Sometimes, the strongest person isn't the fastest, or the smartest, or even the strongest physically. Sometimes, it's simply the person who refuses to give up, even when hope feels impossibly far away. Life lesson. Imagine being alone, with no phone, no GPS, no rescue team, no certainty that anyone would ever find you. Most of us will never face a challenge like that, but we all experience moments when life feels overwhelming, moments when the road ahead seems impossible. Mauro Prosperi teaches us something extraordinary. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's choosing to take one more step, even when fear is walking beside you. Sometimes, survival begins with a single decision: to keep going. One more step, one more hour, one more day. Because you never know how close you might be to your miracle. Official Beyond Motivation Outro. The world is full of incredible stories. Stories of survival, courage, hope, and the incredible strength of the human spirit. If you enjoyed this documentary, please like, subscribe, and become part of the Beyond Motivation family. Together, we'll continue exploring the world's most unforgettable true stories. Remember, every story has a lesson, and every lesson has the power to change a life. Until next time, take care, stay inspired, and I'll see you again soon in our next unforgettable documentary, only on Beyond Motivation.